I want to thank you, Congresswoman Tlaib, for leading this conversation today. I'm seeing some of my colleagues on the floor today that remember the story that I wanted to tell. This was the fall of 2002, and there was a vigorous debate going on whether or not we should be sending our troops to declare war on Iraq, and take out Saddam Hussein, and the story went that there were weapons of mass destruction. Oh yes, we had briefings. They were in the north, they were in the south, and in the west and the east. They were there all right, we were told. And a vote was going to come up on the authorization for the use of military force, AUMF, in Iraq. And there was one voice in particular that stood out and still stands out to me, a woman who was the ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee. Her name was Nancy Pelosi, who stood up at our meetings and said, no, there is no intelligence to justify that we go to war in Iraq. And a group of us got together, see Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, the only member who had voted, because we were already in Afghanistan, who voted against that war, who put together a group called the Out of Iraq Caucus, and we went door to door, literally, and asked our Democratic friends in the House to say no to this war because it was not necessary. And at the end of the day, even though the press story had already been written, that somehow it was almost a unanimous vote, 60% of the Democrats in the House of Representatives voted against that war in Iraq. That was over 17 years ago. We still have troops in Iraq. We spent trillions, literally trillions of dollars, and the loss of life on all sides, including our precious American soldiers that we sent. And most Americans today agree that that war was a disaster and that we shouldn't have done it. And we learned a lesson when it came time to talk about the threat that we knew was there of the nuclear weapons program in Iran. We worked with President Barack Obama in a diplomatic way to pass the Iran agreement that actually stopped Iran from developing nuclear weapons that would threaten not only the United States and the region, but the rest of the world. And it was working. And there were inspectors that would report to us, and every month we got a report that said it was working. And along comes Donald Trump, who had said even in the campaign, this is a really bad idea, this is a terrible agreement. And lo and behold, just a few weeks ago, he decided, it seems like a long time, not long ago, he decides all of a sudden that it's a really important thing for us to go after Iran, while Soleimani, the general, who's part of the government, is in Iraq. Now, no one is crying over the death of Soleimani. The question is the United States safer now than it was? And the answer is a resounding no. And that is why I am in strong support of the legislation by Barbara Lee that now says that we will sunset that 2002 authorization for the use of military force in Iraq. And the legislation by Ro Khanna that will prohibit the use of federal funds for military action in or against Iran until and unless, will not do it until and unless Congress specifically authorizes it or declares war, to declare war and let's see, or specifically authorizes it or declares war, or such actions are undertaken consistent with the War Powers Resolution of 1973. In other words, come to Congress. That's who we are. That's our job. We are the ones that are supposed to say war or peace, the most important thing we could do to decide whether we send our young men and women into harm's way to sacrifice their lives. So we have to exert our authority. We have to exert our authority right now. I stand in support of that legislation. We don't need, and the American people don't want, another endless war in Iran or anywhere in the Middle East. And it is time to say no, to say that Congress is going to make those decisions and to do it now. I yield back in gratitude.
Thank you so much to my good colleague from Illinois.